western border of South America, over 480 years ago, was the largest empire at the time of the Spanish conquest. This is the Inca Empire, and I, Aralyn, am here today to talk to you about the Incas and their culture. It all started in a small kingdom of Cusco, where the first Inca, which means ruler, Pachacuti Inca, was set for glory. He took his men and planned for expansion. First to the south, then in all directions, he created an empire which they called Tawantinsuyu, which means the land of four corners, with Cusco in the center. With a now new empire, they adopted the government, economy, and culture from the kingdoms in which they conquered. With no physical currency, taxes were paid with labor to the emperor. Previously known as the Inca, the Sapa Inca is now thought to be the child of the sun. This would put him in the favor of the Inca's god, Inti, the sun goddess. The temple to the goddess was over 12,000 feet in circumference and was used as a way to communicate with the goddess. High priests depended on the divine to diagnose illness, solve crimes, and even predict the outcomes of wars. They asked this with animal sacrifices and gold offerings. In fact, the entire temple was filled with gold offerings, for it was the Incas who believed that gold was the sweat of the sun. They mainly used gold and silver in their metalworks. The Incas also believed that silver was the tears of the moon and used it as offerings to their moon goddess, Mama Kilya. Metalworks were a main cultural art form and were used as a way to feel closer to their goddesses. All jewelry was made out of gold and silver, but for the Sapa Inca, it was a little more extreme. From the plates he ate off of to the soles of his shoes, they were all made of the purest gold and silver. At one time, the Sapa Inca ordered the creation of a garden made entirely of gold. Everything from the corn farm to the life-size models of shepherds, jaguars, llamas, guinea pigs, monkeys, and even birds were all made of gold. Unfortunately, all that's left of this garden is a few stalks of golden corn. Luckily, other metalworks were kept safe, which we can now use to learn about the art forms. Surviving figurines were figurines made of gold and silver of humans and llamas that were left at burial sites. These metalworks were made using a complex system. The first step is to heat and beat the metals repeatedly to shape them into the shape you want before they cool down. The second step is to use the fire to fuse the pieces of metal together. The third step is to beat and heat the pieces that you fused together to shape them into the final shape you want. Finally, they would add their last touches, which usually entailed covering the metalwork in a thin sheet of gold or a gold paint. Another art form, more for its practicality, was ceramics. Creations like the urpu, a wide, round vessel with a large handle used for carrying crops. They also used clay to create bowls, beakers, and plates. One thing of much importance to the Inca is the pacha, a shoot placed straight in the ground to extract maize beer from the floor. It's used strictly for celebrating a plentiful harvest. Without the mechanics that we have today, the process of creating these ceramics is a long and difficult one. First, a base of clay is created, slowly adding on pieces of clay. Next, the entire vessel is smoothed down with a smooth stone. Third, a clay slip is added and it's painted, usually with animal depictions. And finally, the vessel is fired, using either an oxidizing method, which would leave the vessel with a red, orange, or cream outcome, or a reduction method, where you would limit the fire of the oxygen and it would leave the vessel with a black color. The final art form I want to talk to you about is the Inca's textiles. Before creating a textile, a few things must be taken into consideration. First is the quality of the textile. Different materials like cotton and wool can determine how much a textile is worth. High-quality textiles can be used to show wealth, or in some cases are used to pay taxes. Also, what colors they dye the threads can give the textile a whole different meaning. Red is used to symbolize conquest and rulership, while black is used to show creation and death. Green is used to show rain and agricultural wealth, while purple is used to symbolize the rainbow and the Inca's founding creator, Mama Okla. In making textiles, they must choose the image they wish to send to you. The process of creating a single textile could take weeks because everything is done by hand. First, they would harvest the material they want to make into thread. Next, using a drop spindle, they would spin all the thread by hand. Third, they would create the textile using a loom. Now there are 3 different kinds of looms. For a smaller or medium-sized textile, they would use a backstrap loom, but for a larger and finer textile, they would use either a heddle loom or a vertical loom. Unfortunately, only 130 years after its creation, the Inca Empire was conquered by Francisco Pizarro during the Spanish conquest. Although the Inca Empire is gone, its art forms will live on through its ancestors. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I would be happy to take any comments or questions you might have.